Relationships between lexemes. Let's look at the relationship that exists between different lexemes. Do they have any similarities or they are different from each other? We've been using the word perform. It has forms perform, performs, and performed. They're all grammatically conditioned variant of the same one lexeme, that is perform. But performance is not. It is not of the same grammatical uh, variant because it behaves differently from these grammatical variants. The reason was that whereas these are grammatical factors that determine the choice of perform and performs or performed or performing, right? There is no grammatical factor that requires specifically the presence of ands on performance. We can choose the performance of the artist. Here, we have used the word performance with this suffix, right? We can bring any other word here which does not have the performance of the artist. We can say the acting of the artist. The sentence or the phrase remains the same, but we do not necessarily need to use this suffix here. So that's why there is a difference between the lexeme perform and performance. The context determine where to bring a third person s or ed or ing. No context where if a noun appears, it must carry the suffix ans. The suffix ans is not one of the small class of suffix so-called inflectional class whose use is tightly determined by grammar. What sort of suffix is it then? So a suffix like ans is of a different type. The short answer, not being inflectional, it must be derivational. It changes the class of the word. Perform, when we add ans, it becomes performance and it changes from noun to from verb to noun, right? So it must be derivational since the term derivation is used for all aspect of word structure involving affixation that is not inflectional, and also in most of the cases that changes the class. Now let's look at how derivation works in English language. Since performance is not a variant of lexeme perform, they are two different. It's not grammatical variant. It must belong to some other lexeme which may itself have more than one form. So we can say that performance has performances. Which lexeme could this be? So it is performance. There is a performances, performance, and plural performances. Just as cat and cats are the two forms of the lexeme cat. It makes sense to regard performance and performances as two forms of the lexeme performance. This tells us something about the relationship between perform and performance. It is a relationship not between word forms, but rather between two lexemes. They are two different lexemes. In typographical convention, writing convention, it is a relationship between perform and performance. Thus, derivational morphology is concerned with one kind of relationship with between lexeme. Performance is a relationship with perform. Many ways in which lexeme can be related. We can find different ways. For example, we can look at, not concerned here with the relationship solely of meaning. Aubergine and eggplant, they have some similarity of meaning, right? So they relate in this way. Or of sound, we know that they are homonymy. There is homonymy between row, a line of people or thing, and row, propel or to, or to for the boat or etc. Rather, we are concerned mainly with the relationships involving affixation and the grammatical and semantic tasks that such affixation can perform. So we look at what relationship exists, because the relationship is to determine the grammatical tasks that different lexemes or different affixes perform in language. The term base for the partially complete word form to which an affix is attached. So we use the base form. For example, perform is the base form, and we add affixes. For example, ance is you add it to perform and it becomes performance, right? So, or to create inflected word forms or a new word form. So, for example, we add s with perform, and this s is inflected form. Equivalently, these the base for an affixation process is what remains if the affix is removed. So if we remove s from perform, so we are left with the base form. So we have just discussed base form many times, that play, played. So we remove ed, so what is left is play, and that is the base form of the verb. Some bases are root. Some bases are root. Whether bound, for example, wives, it is a bound morpheme, right? It's a bound. We cannot use it alone. It has to be added with an s, plural, s wives, right? The base for wives or free cat. They are, so these are base forms, and they serve as serve as the basic entity for adding affixes to them. So when affixes are removed from them, there remains only base forms. So these are different relationship found in the lexeme between two or more lexemes.